All right, everybody, we're here. It's the spoiler-heavy review of The Mandalorian, Season 3, Episode 1. And we're going to get into it. It's going to be a full-on spoiler review. We'll talk about everything that we liked. A few things that I had issues with, minor. But if you're brand new to the channel, you've never been here before, we're going to be doing this and more. A lot of spoiler talk for Mandalorian and a lot of other things. We got an in-studio interview with Katee Sackhoff, Bo-Katan herself, and we're giving away a free helmet. Bo-Katan signed by Katee Sackhoff herself. She's coming back in and do spoilers, but you got to go over that interview and go find out how to win that. That's linked to the channel as well. All right, so let's get into it, man. Let's start. This was a good soup of Star Wars, as I've been saying. They took a lot of the things that you had to go from that episode of Boba Fett right into this, because there's going to be people confused of why Mando and Grogu are together. And I don't think they did the best job letting new viewers know in the coming up, or the previously on, rather. But nonetheless, you start off here, and you start with the armorer, which you love starting with the armorer. And you get the Mandalore symbol, and she's building something. She's always building something. You know something's going down when she's building stuff. And she comes walking out, and he's like, at first I was like, oh, she's making a helmet for Grogu. That's what I thought she was doing, because I know they're training Grogu to be Mandalorian. So here she goes. She comes walking out, and then once she comes walking out, you see all the. This is a really cool scene, seeing all the Mandalorians lined up on this beach. But they don't really tell you when it is. So when I see this kid at first, I'm going, is that young Din? That might be young Din. So maybe they're going back into another flashback of how this all went down? Not sure. So I thought it was a nice setup, and it was like, okay, well, how are they going to intro this thing? Are they going, because this whole thing is about his redemption on taking off his mask and becoming a Mandalorian again, because they show that in the previously on. So they go, this must be where the adventure for him started. And here's the helmet, but it's like, okay, it's a different helmet, whatever, who knows? Maybe bang that thing up at grade school, who knows? And this whole presentation, it just shows you what I loved about it. It shows the traditions and what this certain sect of Mandalorians, how true they are to this religion and the ceremonies and all that. And I loved this. I thought this was so great, the way they set this whole thing up, giving this kid the helmet. She gives him the Kree. Kid says, yeah, I'm down. Cool. Why not? Puts on the helmet. Says, all right, good. It's a good one, guys. We're going to go have some snacks. And then she dips in. She will have some snacks. And Vizsla knows something's going on. Not just because he produces the show. He knows something's going down. And sure as hell, so does she. She's like, get the hell out of here. Snacks. And here comes this big-ass alligator. Must be in Florida somewhere, because here comes the alligator, pops up, kid hits the dirt. He goes, sweet ceremony. And then it all goes down. They're shooting the hell out of this thing. And I have to tell you, because I did get the opportunity to see this on a movie screen. And it made me realize immediately that I definitely have been calling. I would love for the series finale, whenever that is. If you listen to Nevarro, it won't be for a long time. But a series finale in a movie theater, and this definitely cemented that for me. It looked so great on a big movie screen. And I'll tell you, from where we have gone, and granted the budgets for television are much larger now than they ever have been, but television CGI compared to years ago, I thought this looked pretty damn good. The Mandalorian has done that traditionally when they did it with the Crate Dragon, and they did it now with the with this alligator, this big-ass alligator. And sometimes they do things in Star Wars, and it's not just the Mandalorian. It's Clone Wars. They have, like, shark people and all this kind of stuff, and modern or things that we have here, and they turn them into stuff. And George Lucas did that from the beginning, wolf creatures and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't know how I was going to take a big-ass alligator, and I thought it was pretty damn effective. This thing was pretty scary, pretty creepy, and it's taken out Mandalorians left and right for snacks. I mean, look at that one alone. It's this poor guy. He's just come to hang out and say, yeah, I was going to go to little Jimmy's ceremony today. Yeah, I think I was going to watch Last of Us. No, you are the Last of Us. You're done. You're going to be you're a treat. Poor bastard. So then these guys will jump up. No, they can't do anything. They didn't even hurt this thing. They're blasting. They take this guy, and it was all great to see. Like, hey, look what these Mandalorians can do. They didn't do anything to this thing. The thing's like, cut it out, stop it. Like fleas, nothing. Even the armor, who's kicking ass and then normally can cause some effect. This thing is whipping it around, and I loved how they took certain things alligators do, where they wrap their bellies around and they flip around, and I thought it was pretty effective. But it also was like, I would have liked to seen the Mandalorians do a little bit of damage, just a little bit, like hurt it, make it limp, something. Like they're not doing anything to it whatsoever. But nonetheless, they're still firing it away, and you're like, okay, we're starting off big here on this season, a big set piece anyway, or excuse me, big action piece. And all the Mandalorians again just shooting at it, can't do anything. They're firing away, and then what happens? Look up into the sky, and there it is. There's our boys. And that obviously you know right away. I think you knew even before that we are in real time. And here comes Din flying in his cruiser. I love how he's really owned the old school prequel era cruiser. And he comes in, you guys tell me, he comes flying in. I thought he rammed it, but wouldn't he have blown up? I guess he shot it and then flew off to the side. That's what it looked like. But he takes this thing out, and the Galactic Wildlife Foundation, or whatever it is, foundation is coming after Din because he keeps killing animals. Every season he kills some kind of animal, and this one's done. So you have a lot of trophies in there, but this is my favorite because he pulls up, and it's very effective in general. I'm sure it was effective for you guys too. They look over and like, oh, here he is again. The guts all over the place. He did it again, and Grogu pops out of the top, and you're like, okay, well they're back together again. There's the crew. The Beatles are back together. Now this is the scene that I thought was hilarious in a way. Like she's in there, she's making her thing, and then if you have kids, this kind of reminds me of, hey mom, you see what I did? I did good, right? I know you're mad at me, but I did good. And he wants redemption so badly for taking off his mask, and this has been his whole life. It's been his whole life, and he's like, hey, listen, I did good, right, Ma? And she's like, you're not a Mandalorian anymore. So what if I go bathe in the water? You can't bathe in the water. It's over. So what if I do? And Grogu's like, eh? And here's my concern, not issue yet. Concern. At the end of season 2, they put Grogu away with Luke. They say, okay, he's going away with Luke. He's going to be a Jedi. And like, okay, well, you're probably going to get the start of season 3 with Mando kind of doing this, but without Grogu. And then there was a note, one would assume, that, hey, we need Grogu back. Whether it was merchandise, whether it was whatever it is, you're gonna do the season without Grogu? You're going to do half the season without Grogu? Come on. So like, all right, listen, we have a couple episodes with Boba Fett. We'll put them back together there. And they did, and it is what it is, and they put them back to, and you either figured it out or you don't. I mean, that's going to be the issue people are wondering, talking about. That's been going on already even before this show aired. My concern is this. I don't want them to overuse Grogu. I love Grogu. I think he serves the purpose. I think that he is going to do a lot of different things in this season, and I think that they're going to strengthen him. Yes, he's still a kid, but it's almost like what they do with Groot, and that Groot's going to start to mature, and the same with Grogu is also, and he's a character, but I don't want them to overdo the cuteness aspect. Like, Grogu, you love him, right? He's so cute. It's like in wrestling when someone's over, and it's after a while, you're like, eventually the crowd's going to turn on him. It's like, okay, great. Yeah, we've seen this trick a lot. And I'm not saying they're doing that yet. I'm just saying that the fear is there because they could, if they're like, oh, more Grogu, more, don't do that. I think that they can, absolutely use him as a strong character, use him in the right moments. People love him. Just saying. But I think he served the purpose very well here. Just a concern, small concern. And as we move on, she's basically saying, okay, so what do you want to do? Is if I can go and do it and I can prove to you, what do you say? And she simply says, this is the way. And we're on our mission. And now this is the one that I was like, oh man, okay. So I'm starting to get that thing that I was hoping for, and I'm sure a lot of you guys picked up on it. Maybe you didn't, but they're flying through space here, and they're going through, and they're the hyperspace, whatever. And as they're flying through, and Din keeps teaching them stuff about being a Mandalorian and teaching them how to fly, and I thought that was all pretty great. But Grogu is up there in the ship, and he looks over, and what does he see? And so, for people who watched Rebels, if you didn't watch Rebels, you're probably, what the hell is he looking at? Grogu's looking up, and he sees this vision. He sees this shape, and that's the Purgles, the space whales, if you will. And they have a huge part in Rebels, and a huge part in the finale of Rebels, and ultimately the whole thing that connects Thrawn and Ahsoka and all that together. And it's then they just in case you were looking at this shot going, wait, is that what I think it is? This shot goes, yeah, it is exactly what you think it is. And he's looking, and he's trying to reach out, and this is to me that connectivity of that event that they're talking about, or at least the connection more so to the Ahsoka series. And here's that shot with them flying through that just shows you again how big those freaking space whales are. And so this is from Rebels, and this is a shot from Rebels. That's the Purgle there. And I like that, just mild tease for it, because showing how all this stuff is connected together, I thought that was great. And then they're flying through, they go through, and this is really what the juice of the episode is here. And they get to Nevarro. And Nevarro, for us, if you're watching Mandalorian since the beginning, Nevarro was like the first kind of new planet, the one that we all set down, the one after Mando first gets his bounty, and he comes in, and that's where he's collecting his stuff. And the difference between what Nevarro is from season 1 to now is monumental, and Din says as much, how much it's changed. And they set it up, and it was like, I think I can see some people going, oh man, they're really trying to beat you over the head with the Star Wars of it all. I loved that part of it. I love that how, like, if you watch this for the first time, it feels very Star Wars-y, and I can see some people going, I feel like they were trying too hard to be Star Wars. I can see that, but it had the effect on me, because they fly into this thing, and like, it just is thriving from what Greef has done with it. And it's beautiful now. He's taking care of it. And people are freaking out about Favreau's comments about how many years in between season 2 and season 3 are. And I think he said like 2 years, or it could be 3 years now. And it's enough time to kind of build out the city, and time and space move differently. So I'd give it a pass. But they're walking through, and he says as much, like, this place has changed, man. And as you're going through, you see all the stuff, like this, the market, the monkeys are safe. They're in the trees, but you got like an Akbar, Mon Calamari running around the joint. People are smiling. There's the monkeys in the trees. And then you got the protocol droids walking through. And this is the part where I was saying, like, this is where I would love to go and check this out and be like, oh man, this is. If people always ask that question, if you could go into a Star Wars planet, where would you go? Now in season 1, I wouldn't go anywhere near Nevarro, but now I was like, oh, I want to see like the full Star Wars experience. Man, this is this to me, I thought encapsulated it pretty well for how they set this up, and I think Rick Fumajimi did an amazing job directing this episode every time he does, and he's a producer on the show this year, and you can see it, you can see the stamp, and I think now I'm so curious to where you guys are going to land with this, because I'm mixed. So they go into the town square, and there's this IG-11 is there. Is it IG-11 or IG-88? I always get them mixed up. You tell me. IG-11, I think. So he's there, and he's in the town square. They have this, rightfully so, this statue of what he did and how he basically saved Nevarro and liberated from the stormtroopers. His foot is on a stormtrooper helmet, and I thought this was fantastic. And it's actually pieces from the droid himself. And then here comes Greef with just a badass intro. He's got a band next to him. He's got people he's got droids holding up his cape. He's got protocol droids to the side, and then he gives him the Dylan slam, the Predator, old school there. And he's just talking. He's, I was waiting for you to come in. And I love the friendship that these two now have. And it's all set up, and it's as great for people who are watching from season 1 all the way through, obviously. It's just nice to see where these two have come all the way. They've been through it together from fighting against each other, working for them, fighting against each other, working together again. And it's just like all this and more. And then he goes and he talks to me. He says, listen, man, I need you. I know that your mission's over. I know everything's going well, but I need you. I can set you. We can set up camp for you. We can give you a nice little spot. This place is thriving right now. So come on in. He's like, I can't. I got to go somewhere. What are you doing? The mission's done, right? Come on. And there's a great line where because Din's so connected to Grogu at this point, and Grief calls him little guy or calls him whatever he calls him. He's like, it's Grogu. He's like, whatever, sure. It was a great delivery by Carl Weathers. And then Grogu's just spinning around in the chair. And I think what's effective about this, as much as it's obviously for comic relief and to see the cuteness factor that I was talking about before, but it's also to show he's pretty strong in the Force. If he has been training with Luke for the last 2 years, he knows what he's doing now, and he's a kid, so he wants his treats, and he's able to do it. He doesn't have to like struggle like he did in the previous seasons. And this played pretty well when they go to this cantina here. This is straight out of this is where I was talking about, where I think I mentioned in my out of the theater reaction that I think that I loved Andor. Andor is one of my favorite Star Wars properties in a long time, with the writing and how it was put together. I think it's brilliant, and I understand people who didn't respond to it. They don't. The criticism of boring is, to me, I don't listen to. Slow I can handle, or it didn't. It's not the reason that I watch Star Wars. The stuff that I love about Star Wars, it didn't have. If someone said that, I would understand that. I get that. Like, it does focus on one particular thing. Mando focuses on all of it, and especially if you are like the Clone Wars fan, the animated series fans, like all of that. You can see Filoni's stamp on this. You can see how the prequel stamp on it. You can see how all of it, they brought all of it together. And I think that this scene particularly really shows that. And it's got these pirates, and they're like, hey, yeah, listen, we like the way Nevarro used to be. We're going into this bar. And he's like, no, that's a school. Beat it. And Grief's trying to be reasonable. And he's like, come on, we'll have a drink. My office. Let's go hang out. And he's like, nah, we're going to drink here. He's like, nah, it's a school one. And I like this, to me, plays really well off of like the old school costuming in Star Wars. It also plays off the old school kind of, again, Clone Wars animation side, and it transfers over really well. At least I think so. I thought the costuming looks fantastic on these guys. And Grief's like, come on, let's get out of here. And this is also old school Mando, by the way. This was the Mando that we knew from season 1. And he's just sitting back, and I'm pretty sure this is Brendan Wayne, who I had an opportunity to meet. He's coming on the show, by the way. Awesome dude, but just has that swagger. I don't know if this is him or Lateef, but I believe this is him. I'll ask him when he's in. And Mando's just leaning on the tree, and he's just like, okay, I'll shoot a fool if I have to. And the protocol droid in the back with Grief, but this is also what I loved about this particular scene, is because the pirate shows his weapon, and Grief's like, Mando's not even sweating. Just look at him, just like, I guess I'll shoot somebody if I have to. But I love this where the pirate's like, all right, I'm gonna go for it, and he's like, you sure? And Grief has his weapon out also. And this is what I loved about this particular scene, is that Grief, you forget, Grief can throw down. In that first episode when he's fighting against Mando, and you think that he's a toast, but he's not. He's a fighter, and you see him in season 2. He can throw down, and he's not, just because he's high royalty now on Nevarro and he's taking over this planet, doesn't mean that he can't throw down, and he does. He's wrong though in this particular scene where I think Mando's right, because the pirates get shot in the head, shot in the hand, and he's like, all right, now beat it. And of course the stupid pirates, they don't. And the extras are like, hey, well, listen, I was on set for one day and Mando shot me in the head. And Mando takes them all out, blasts them out, and then this idiot runs. And this is the part that I think that he's wrong. He's, listen, you sure you want to let him go? He's like, yeah, well, he's going to go back now and say Nevarro is not going to be messed with. I don't know about that. I think the pirates are going to say, you got to figure out a way to come back and take over the thing. Who does this guy think he is? And I don't want to play this is what I'm talking about, and I wish scenario, but I will. This is the type of stuff I wish we would have seen in Boba Fett. More stuff like this, like to the extent of the this seemed more Mafia-esque type of moves and just, yeah, okay, listen, you're going to make a move, I'm just going to shoot you dead. That's it. Don't be stupid. But that's how we're here. We're here for different reasons. But this is the scene that I'm sure that is going to cause a lot of controversy and understandable. It's gonna be a whole thing. But I thought they handled it well, where they said, "Hey, I need you to come in here, and I need you to be the sheriff." And he's like, "Well, what happened to Marshal Dune?" And he's like, "Well, Marshal Dune, after that whole thing went down, with Gideon, they recruited her. She's off fighting other battles." I thought it's a good move because they didn't kill her. I think if you would have killed her, that would have been bigger stink. I think it's a big galaxy, and they said, hey, she's just off fighting, because the chances of Gina Carano coming back to Star Wars are slim to none. However, if anybody, look, there are people that you never thought would work together again and did. This keeps the door open. Do I think she'll ever be back? I don't. But if you killed her off, I think it causes a bigger stink. It's going to cause a stink no matter what, but I think it causes less of a stink if you say she's off fighting battles. And then they switch it real quick. They address it, and then they go, well, what about Gideon? Yeah, he's in a cell. And that's it. We'll find more. I think, obviously, we know that Giancarlo's coming back. But he's like, okay, I can't, but listen, I cannot be your guy. I can't. I got other things to do. I got bigger fish to fry. Now, this is where I don't know how I feel about it yet. He goes, well, I need IG. I need him. He's like, why? I got all these other droids that you can use. Why do you need him? He's like, because I need him. Why? Because Taika Waititi's popular and people like him. I'm like, really? We need IG, but doesn't that kind of take away from the whole thing and that sacrifice that he made? That was a devastating scene. It was so great. I was like, they honor him. They're going to revitalize him. Why? Because we revitalize everybody. Everybody's coming back. It's like, I didn't love that. Now, I probably can get over it pretty quick. But I tell you what I did love, but they're not going to stick with it this way. Then they start going back there, like, let's go build him up. This is a funny scene. They take all his pieces and they go and they start building him up. And he's like, oh, I can build him up. I was like, okay, great. Just like Nick Nolte did. You can't do it the same way. And it pops open, and it's got his original programming back in Terminator 1 style. Then starts blasting him. He comes after him, and it's hilarious. He tosses Grogu to grief. Didn't love this line. That's using your head. That was something out of like an 80s action movie that just seemed out of place. But whatever. And then they go, and they're like, well, we got to figure out a way to really make this droid work. And it's like, just give up on it already. But no, we got to introduce the Babu Frik characters, which was adorable. It was hilarious. Loved this scene. Din's sitting there all cooped up, and he's like, this thing's fried, man. And it was a good comedic bit. Carl Weathers' comedy was on point in this scene. He keeps popping his head, and this is what he said. He's like, I can hear him. I get it. I understand it. He's like, look, you're going to need a different chip. Beat it. So I just think that they could have said, like, all right, look, how about another droid? We took a shot, put him back up, in the statue. And this was hilarious when Grogu keeps trying to hug. He's like, not a pet. It's a funny scene. The humor was fantastic. That's the type of Star Wars humor that I love. People give me crap about, oh, you don't like to see, you don't think there's jokes in Star Wars? Absolutely. Stuff like this. I always reference the season 1 when he tries to set the Jawas on fire. It's stuff like this. It's relevant to the character. It makes sense to what the character would do that. This young kid would try to keep hugging this thing, and it's big, and he's bigger. And he's like, it's not a pet. And then Grief sticking his head in there, and that bit could have gone very goofy, but it didn't. It just played like he's just trying to tell him, hey, this is what he's saying. He's like, I get it. I'm right here. I understand. I thought it played really well. I thought it was a good use of humor there. I really enjoyed it. But nonetheless, he gets in. He's like, all right, man. You think about it. Good luck to you. Come back, and I'll hopefully have IG working for you. And they take off. They're going, and this is really what ultimately I think the whole season's going to be about. He takes off. He's telling them more about the navigation. And this was straight up out of like the Attack of the Clones. The CGI and the graphics inside of this was amazing. The pirates come back, as we know that they would, and there's this battle inside of space. I thought it was shot masterfully by Rick Famuyiwa. I thought it was such a great, and the costuming on all the aliens were great, and he gets through it. And at first, as this again is very animated Clone Wars here, this guy, like he's like Swamp Thing meets he's creepy looking. At first I was like, I don't know, this guy's gonna look pretty goofy. It looks like that Seymour old school kids show. But then up close, he's pretty creepy looking. I thought it was really effective. He blasts off, and this is it. This is what the show is really about, right? He shows up and he needs some help. He wants to get back to Mandalore. So what does he do? He goes and he sees our girl. He goes in, he goes to the castle, and Bo's just sitting there. She's done. She's like, listen, man. She's like, I want to join you. You had your chance. You and your zealots, you goofed. So go have a blast on Mandalore, and I'm gonna be right here. And she's defeated, mentally defeated. And he's like, look, I gotta go. I want to join you. You don't want it. All your people left, and we get a little bit of a breakdown of what went down, right? And yeah. So by the way, and like I said, Katie was on the show, and you can see the interview right now. You want to try to win a Bo-Katan helmet, you can do that. Head on over to that interview. But nonetheless, she's done with it, and she's good luck to you. Beat it. And it was directed wonderfully by Rick Famuyiwa. I thought it was a great setup to episode 2. Full disclosure, I have seen episode 2 and really look forward to talking to you guys about that one. I think episode 2 is incredible, and it's because of the way this is set up. Like, it sets us up into episode 2 is fantastic. That's all I'll say. But I like where we're going with it. I like the start of it. I like the idea. I get any criticisms of, they just threw Grogu and Din back together. Yeah, I get it, but from where we are and what we have to do and his mission to get to Mandalore, it makes sense. But I ask you guys, what do you guys think? Did you like the episode? Did you not like the episode? Any of my gripes, your gripes? Do you have different gripes? No gripes? What do you think, and how are you feeling about the overall season? Let's have a discussion about it. And speaking of discussion, Sith Council, right there. That's going to happen a little later today. It's myself and Steph Sabral. We're going to have a full-on spoiler discussion together on The Mandalorian. I'm also going to play a little bit of video from last night's event where both Jon Favreau, Rick Famuyiwa, and Filoni introed the episode, and then they brought out Katie and Pedro Pascal to say a few words too. And I have that footage that I'll play on the episode a little later. But that's it, man. Once again, if you're brand new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. We'll be doing these breakdowns of the episode. We'll be doing full spoiler discussions, that and more. And check out that interview with Katie, man. It's awesome. And get an opportunity to win that helmet. So thank you guys so much for joining me on the show. It's The Mandalorian Season 3. Spoiler. Peace out.